Welcome to the Atheist in Recovery podcast, where we talk about finding hope in recovery. And now your host, Dr. Adina Silvestri.
Hola, Atheists in Recovery, and welcome to episode 102 of the Atheists in Recovery podcast. And today we are talking again with Arlina Allen. This episode focuses on Arlina's theory and practice of recovery. And so if you haven't listened to episode 101, please go back to that episode and listen to that one. It will really help set the foundation for this episode, or not. Or you can do them in reverse if you're feeling a little crazy. But I do encourage you to listen to the entirety of the episode because there's just a lot of good tidbits in the episode, which is why I decided to extend it for 2 weeks. So I hope you enjoy the rest of today's episode with Arlina Allen, and on to the show. I wanted to jump back to our bookmark about
You're so good about remembering things.
I try. Almost 2 years now.
Awesome.
Being in a place where these outdated stories are sort of masquerading as promises in your life. I feel like you were on that track, and then I sort of interrupted you, but I wonder if we could go back there for a few minutes, and because I think this is something that's really important, and I feel like a lot of us struggle with this, I'll never be successful because I didn't start with a trust fund, or I'll never find a partner because I'm unlovable, or I'll fail my children because look at what my parents did to me,
Oh yeah. Those are all and we all feel like we're terminally unique. Like we all think we have like this uniqueness about us, but we are more alike than we are different. And we all have these stories, like you said, that the stories that we tell ourselves. It's in childhood, we have experiences. Usually the negative ones are the ones that impact us the most because our brains are designed to focus on the negative. It's like a negativity bias. Right. And it's done out of survival. Like we're trying to survive as children. We have to find ways of coping. We have to find ways to survive because we are not in control of our environment. The adults are. Mm-hmm. And so we have to learn to please the adults to make them give us what we need. Right. So the love that we need, the food, shelter, protection, all that. So we learn these, and it's based on the adults. But what ended up happening to me, I'll just speak for myself. I needed to perform. I needed to save my sister. I was 14 years old and my mom was like, she was so worried about my sister. And back then I'm 52. So back then I was 14 at the time. There wasn't a lot of mainstream. Mental health was just not in the mainstream at all, or how to handle it. It's still not great, to be perfectly honest, but back then it was even worse. And we didn't know that she was suffering from depression. So my mom told me, she's like, we need to stay close to her. The message I got is that I had to save my sister, like that she was in peril and I needed to save her. And I was 14 and had zero skills, right? Yeah. I could barely manage myself. But in my mind, like I didn't feel like I had my mother's love or approval. It was so conditional. And I was like, oh, if I save my sister, then my mother will love me. So it began this sort of idea. And that wasn't even conscious. It was all subconscious. And so that's kind of how, for me, those ideas started. It was like, oh, performance-based survival. So anyway, the negativity bias, it's like something bad happens. And then I think it comes from our primordial brain, trying to survive the environment. And so we need to look for the danger and then, prepare for that. But anyway, I had this negativity bias and I was looking for reasons. I had these beliefs about who I was and I wasn't good enough. And so I just kept finding, and then you have confirmation bias, which is looking for information to support your own idea. And we see that all the time, in politics. It's like you make up your mind about something and you only look for evidence to support your idea at the exclusion of everything else. It's you either discredit or deny everything else. And that was true for me is in terms of self-esteem. I decided I wasn't really good enough. I wasn't smart enough. And every time I had a negative experience, I was like, oh, that's why.
That's why.
So, and so the evidence just stacked up against me.
Yeah.
And so I was going after terrible relationships. I did not take very good care of myself. I would put myself in dangerous situations and all of that. So that's kind of where it all came from. So I teach this self-esteem class, and
Uh-huh.
my favorite exercise, and this is so simple that you can do it yourself
Yeah.
after you listen to this. What is it that you want, and why don't you have it?
Mm.
It's a great writing exercise, because the reason you don't have it, your subconscious mind will serve up all your stories. It's like, I'm just not that great in business. I don't have great decision-making skill. It's like, these are things that that haunt me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, so what is it that you want, and why don't you have it? And the why don't you have it are the clues. And the idea is that once you just like do this brain dump and just get it all out, be as petty and small-minded, or whatever you want to say it. Write down all the reasons why you don't have what you want, and then look for ways to like reframe. Those are your negative limiting beliefs. There
Yeah.
they are
Yeah.
in black and white. And then the idea would be to do the writing exercise in the opposite, reframe every single one of those reasons into the positive. It's like, well, I don't have the connections that I need. It's like, well, I can meet new friends and make
Mm-hmm.
new connections. I can learn networking skills. I can find ways to connect with others. It's like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Mm-hmm.
like you take each one of these things. First of all, it's really great. Have you heard of Byron Katie's 4 questions, or no, she calls it the work.
I've heard of her, but not of the work.
Oh
No.
my
No.
God. It's so good.
Really?
Yeah. So good. She even has an app called The Work. It's a free
Mm.
app, and it's just like a series of questions. I forget what the 4 questions are, but it's like, is it true? Is it really true? Like, start to question your own beliefs, right?
Mm.
Is it really true? How can I absolutely know for sure that it's true? It's like, what else could this mean? Right? What
Yeah.
else could it mean? Like, so oftentimes we don't even question our own beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting, because our brain is just a tool. We are not our thoughts, right? Your brain's job is to think. And so it will serve up all kinds of nonsense. We don't even question
Mm-hmm.
whether it's true or not, right? And those of us with drug and alcohol issues, it's like, if you think about it like a very practical way, it's like, I just put a bunch of drugs and alcohol in my brain, and I'm going to use that broke ass tool to make decisions for my entire life. Not a good idea.
Mm.
Not a good idea. But anyway, so
Yeah.
we need to really take care of our brains, and we need to separate ourselves from our brains. We are not our brains. So the idea is that we question our thoughts, and then we look for alternative meanings. If there's something that you want and somebody else has it, what did they do?
Mm-hmm.
What did they do to get it? Right? What did they believe? That kind of thing. And so really, that's for me like a great starting point to
Mm.
identifying and reframing limiting beliefs. And just as a side note, there is so much information out there about like rewiring your brain and
Mm-hmm.
changing your subconscious thoughts, because that's where everything comes from. I learned in sales that people make decisions emotionally and justify logically. Even our most logical humans will make decisions emotionally, whether they recognize it or not. Like, a lot of those people are very disassociated.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't recognize that it's a feeling that's driving them, but we make decisions emotionally and justify logically. So where are those emotions coming from? That's all based on past history and decisions. Our brain is like an operating system, and it consumes a lot of energy. So it becomes efficient by, operating from the subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so really that's where your power lies. It lies in your beliefs.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about the subconscious mind is that it believes whatever you tell it often enough. Like, it doesn't need to be based in truth. So that's why I say question your beliefs, because a lot of times they're not even rooted in truth.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think they're horrible people, but yet they have lives dedicated to service. How do we reconcile that? Well, they have these negative limiting beliefs that aren't true.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you said, how do you justify that? Either you're this horrible person, but your life is dedicated in service. Or
Yeah.
even, I'm this horrible person, I slipped up and then I hurt so and so and I hurt my family again. And I have all this
Mm,
guilt and all this remorse and shame. And, I am this terrible person, just like you said. And it's like, no, you're not, because you
no.
have this guilt and like you have this remorse. And, look at all the
Right.
good that you're doing now that you've come out from under it. So,
well, here's the thing about that comes up a lot in early recovery. It's like we do things that we regret under the influence of alcohol,
mm,
right? Alcohol is addictive. And that means that you lose the ability to choose whether you're going to drink or not, or
mm,
how much you're going to, like once you start, like, and it's all driven by there's a compulsion underneath all of that, right? And that is what I'm most interested in. It's like, what is driving you to drink?
mhm,
Right. And it's all in your subconscious mind. Like, here's the thing: we disassociate, detach, deny,
mhm,
suppress all our feelings. We spend a lot of energy doing that. And so we're completely disconnected from ourselves. And then something bad happens and our compulsion is to drink. Well, our brain has our dopamine reward system has been wired to respond to alcohol.
mhm.
And therein lies the issue, right? Like, this is why emotion management is so important, right?
Yeah.
It's important that you resolve the issues, like you dig up all the stuff from the past, you address it and resolve it to resolution. And that's something that is really, that's part of emotion management. It's not the denial of negative feelings. That stuff is going to happen, but it's acknowledging it, addressing it, feeling your feelings and processing them to resolution. That
Mhm.
is what emotion management is for me today. I'm 27 years sober today. It's been a long
Nice.
time since, but I still practice emotional regulation practices because I feel like, once you sort of cross that line, there's no going back. It's the whole idea that once a cucumber becomes a pickle, it never be, you can't make a pickle into a cucumber. It's just, once you cross the line, you just never go back. But because my consequences for drinking are so severe, it does force me to stay on this path of constant vigilance and self-care.
Mm.
So that the consequence is so high for me. I do have to maintain this practice of self-care. And that's really what I focus on, is the self-care.
That's what you focus on today in your recovery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In regards to, try to rewire my brain. It's not like because I'm sober a long time, I don't have, in neuroscience terms, they have what's called the default mode network. It's a sort of like your computer's operating system. And we can try to break out of that default mode network. You have to fight through a lot of fears and doubts and stuff like that. But you can actually rewire your brain and and that means is like you reset your default mode network, you rewire your dopamine reward system, your brain begins to heal, and you're able to make better decisions because your feelings, your emotions are more regulated,
Mhm.
right? We start to identify our negative limiting beliefs that aren't even true. We develop new ones, that you can't leave. There's no like taking a negative belief and not replacing it with something positive. But you can't really leave a void. You need something to take its place.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's like you're healing your brain and rewiring
Yeah.
it so that you're thinking and feeling different.
Yeah. All of that sounds good. And I love the exercise that you talked about, what is it that you want and why don't I have it? Why don't you have it? Yeah. Why don't
Yeah.
So starting there would be a good place, you feel like, to start to identify some of those negative thought patterns that are contributing to these outdated stories.
Right.
And if you need help with changing some of these thoughts, you should reach out. Yeah. Which is so
Absolutely.
easy. But
So here's the funny thing. So all the information is out there for free. It's
mhm.
applying it that's the tricky part.
Mhm. Mhm.
Applying the information, that's the hard part. That's why
Mhm.
there are people like you and I who professionally help people apply the information.
Mhm.
Because listen, we all know how to lose weight, right? Stop
Mhm.
eating the crap
Mhm.
and start exercising. Drink more water, sleep better. Like, we all know what to do, but we don't do it. Why don't we do it? Therein lies the problem. And it's like that those subconscious beliefs. That's what leads to the self-sabotage. So in the class that I do, it's 6 weeks, but we begin the process. It begins with the self-care process. It begins with some sort of like future pacing, like, where do you want to be in 3 years from now? What do you want your life to look like? We do this exercise, like, write your perfect day. That's another one of my favorite exercises that we do out of the class. Write what your perfect day would look like and read it every day,
Mhm.
and feel the feelings as if it's already happened.
Mhm.
Because, like, I like to invoke the law of attraction. You're using it anyway, so you might as well use it to your
Advantage.
benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's for those who like science, National Science Foundation did a study on the number of thoughts people have. They say that there's 60 to 80,000 thoughts per day. 85% of those thoughts are negative, and 95% of those thoughts are the same as the day before. So we are literally living in like Groundhog Day. So if like you're stuck on the hamster wheel, or you find yourself saying, how did I get here again? It's like, pay attention to your thoughts, right? It's like you're invoking the law of attraction by your thoughts. And so if we want something different, we have to think new thoughts, right? We need to focus on what you do want, not what you don't want.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Arlina, this is so good. There's like chock full of information here, neuroscience, emotional management, your compelling story. I mean, this is amazing. We can make this into a course, but we won't.
I told you there is a course. I told you I was a talker. Yeah. And good news is there is a course.
There is a course. So so as we wrap up, why don't you tell all the listeners how they can best find you and a little bit more about your course? Yeah.
Sure. So I have a website called Sober Life School, soberlifeschool.com, and people can email me at Arlina at Sober Life School. My first name is Arlina, but they can go to Sober Life School. I have a podcast, a recovery podcast on there. There's classes are on there. I do one-on-one coaching. So the Sober Life School is sort of like the hub. Mm-hmm. There's like a sobriety reset. It's like a 30-day boot camp to get some momentum. Mm-hmm. To get that first 30 days. But the self-esteem class is called Reinvent. And really what we're doing is we're reinventing our self-image, right, into what we want. So it's very forward facing, mm-hmm. right? It's future pacing. But we do all the stuff that we talked about. What I love about this class is that it's a workshop format. So like I said before, all the information is out there for free, but it's applying that's a trick. And so we do it in a group workshop. So you do the work in class. And I do have some homework, but it's more like, starting a morning self-care practice that includes feeding your brain, meditation, focusing on, gratitude, what you do want, that kind of thing. And it's a little bit of a support system too. The people that attend the class get really close. They have a support system. Like we're humans, like we're animals that need to be mm-hmm. connected, right? Mm-hmm. And so they develop connection, they do the work in class, they develop trust, they get to the subconscious negative limiting beliefs, we reframe, and, we support each other on that journey. It gives you momentum. You apply the information and you start to gain momentum and you start to see changes, real changes, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. and that change is possible.
Definitely.
Even if you've been fighting it your whole life, we really address that mm-hmm. self-sabotage by raising the level of our self-esteem.
Yeah. Love that. Well, Arlina, thank you again so much for being on. And I'll link all of these links in the show notes so that people can find them. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my mission in life to help people. That's what I live for. I gave up my corporate job. I decided the money wasn't worth it. Can you believe that? Mm-hmm. Talk about change. Mm-hmm. I thought money was going to save me. No, it's love. It's love that saves us. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help people find love.
Find the love. All right. Well, thank you again, Arlina.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Atheists in Recovery podcast. For more great info and to stay up to date, head over to atheistsandrecovery.com.